Hey guys, this is Couching the Mind, episode 4, clearing the mind, one couch talk at a time. And today we're chasing the topic of facing the truth. And today I'd like to welcome Jayden and his father to coming onto the show today. A huge thanks for him for joining us. And basically I'll quickly go over our topic. I guess facing the truth, I guess all behind that is, I think, you know, when we're all going through tough times, we deal with, I think the main problem, what I did personally, was denial of facing those truths. And I guess the key words, the hardest thing in the world is to accept the truth. I guess not only in the sense of, you know, it being wrong for you or for others, but for, you know, coming face to face for a change and knowing that change will happen from it. And I think, in my understanding and in my experience, that as hard as it is, we all must face the truth to set ourselves free in one way or another. And I found that I personally, as hard as it was for me to face the truth, and I was stuck in my denial phase for way too long, I think it's much better to rip the Band-Aid off as quickly as you can before, I guess, it manifests into, you know, something terrible. So anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. So this is episode 4, and I'd now like to welcome Jayden and his father. Thank you.
Hey guys, happy Friday. This is Jayden Woolastons speaking from behalf of Couching the Mind, clearing the mind one couch talk at a time. Thanks again, Michael, for the brief introduction on today's video. As Michael said, the topic of today's video is facing the truth, and today I've got my own dad, Jeff, here with me, and he's going to share his own truthful experiences that he's faced with in his life. And I think facing the truth is a really good topic to do with a family member, just purely because I know for a fact that one would usually reach out to a close mate, or you would keep it within yourself if you're struggling, or if there's something on your mind that you don't want to speak to your parents about, you usually kind of avoid that and look at the situation in a different sort of way and try to work around it, I guess. And for my father as well, I want he's open and honest, and he's going to share a few things that I actually haven't probably heard before, and it's going to be quite therapeutic for us, and hopefully it's going to be quite therapeutic for you guys listening in as well, and makes you guys feel comfortable opening up and maybe sharing something that you're also holding in within yourself to a family member. So without further ado, this is topic 4, episode 4, facing the truth, with my father Jeff, and he's going to give us a brief introduction to his lifestyle and where it all started, and we'll go from there.
Cool. Thanks, Jayden. Thank you very much for the opportunity. It's a subject that I am fairly passionate about, or very passionate about, and I do like the fact that you young guys have sort of taken it by the horns, I guess, and you're trying to lead the way and try to inspire people, and that's a really good thing to do. And I know I come from that generation. I'm 53, and I come from that generation where nobody spoke to you.
Why is that? Why do you feel that was the case?
It was very different, mate, when I was growing up, and people didn't open up, particularly guys. I think that you had to be macho, or you had to be tough, and you had to put on a front and all that kind of stuff. And I think that things are slowly changing.
Yep.
Plus, I think there's also been a big stigma with mental illness and even anxiety, or admitting that you felt a bit under the weather, or you felt like that you were struggling at times.
Can I ask, if you never really spoke up and you know, you were open to sharing your negative feelings and emotions, and then how did you exert that negative energy? What did you do? Did you fall onto smoke and alcohol, or what did you do?
Yeah, I used to smoke, and I can honestly say that a lot of that was driven through anxiety. You know, it was a bit of a stress relief thing. And I was quite a heavy smoker at one stage, and I haven't smoked for years now. But that's very true, that you would do things like that. You would bottle things up. you wouldn't say anything to anybody, and it was always of a detriment to you. You know, it affected me through your sleep, through your interaction with other people, your family, your friends, your work, everything, and it really did have a detrimental effect and a very long-term effect. And I also felt a level of shame of feeling that way, because you think, no, you're not supposed to feel like that. You've got to be this person, and society, I guess, never allowed you to do that.
Yep.
But then as years went on, and you probably remember some of this, Jayden, as a very young boy, things did get the better of me.
Yep.
And I couldn't maintain that level of facade, you know, to the point where I can remember it all coming crashing down. I can remember the day, and I'd been to a work function in the city. This was a number of years ago now, and it was actually a Christmas function. And that day I wasn't feeling the best, so I actually didn't drink a lot back in the days when I did drink. And I hadn't actually drank a lot, but I remember even to this day, that night, crystal clear. And I remember getting home to where we were living and basically just breaking down. And I remember sitting in bed and sitting upright and just talking gibberish, just not being able to be comprehensive in any way. It all just came crashing down. I wasn't overly emotional. I didn't feel it, but I just couldn't cope.
Was it
anymore?
Is it because of the fact that you weren't ever told the right way of speaking up and sharing these thoughts that you had in your mind? You thought that by having these ideas in your head that they were devil's work. It wasn't. They weren't meant to be there.
Yep.
And because you weren't grown up in a community and society where people would share these things, you were deemed as bad for sharing, open up.
Yep.
Much like, I mean, it's a little bit different, but like, you know, when the Aussies went into war and they came back and they were seen as the enemy because of what they had done.
War,
They were shunned upon, and I mean, much like that, you probably would feel similar to that, in that you probably feel shunned upon if you were to open up and share this sort of stuff.
Absolutely, mate. And you never, because you know, the old traditional way, I guess, was, you know, you got married and you had children and you had the house and that sort of that dream, and you never had to show any sign of weakness, and that was so. I felt, as I say, a level of shame about it that night, but building up to that point, you know, and to the point where, you know, there was not much pleasure in anything, because everything was clouded by how I was feeling.
Yep.
And I'd never sought any professional help at all to that stage, and not that anybody had ever had a go at me about it.
Do you feel like you needed it and you just felt embarrassed to go and seek professional help?
Very much so, mate. Yeah, I certainly needed it, and yes, I was embarrassed about it. And
why do you feel embarrassed? Because I just want to ask, because I know that a lot of people listening in would probably want to know why, because of our age demographic. It's a little bit different in that if you're feeling shit, that most likely we will go do something about it. But I know of your age demographic, it was more or less dissimilar. It was never the same, and that's why I wonder why.
And but everything in society was geared that way. Today we're encouraged, thankfully, to have these sort of discussions, and not to hide away. But back then, I think what had happened with me, and I can look with hindsight, is that it built up and it built up and it built up to a point where it had been going on for years, that I just imploded almost. And that night, as I say, I remember it well. But certainly there was a level of shame in me, not wanting to admit that that's how I was feeling, and it just wasn't the done thing. And you were considered, you know, there was you're weak, you're a girl, you're this, you're that, you can't admit that stuff. And blokes didn't talk about their feelings. That's bullshit, you know. Get on with it, you know. And it was that mentality. And I'm not blaming anybody,
Yeah, no.
but that's kind of how it was.
No, and I get that because I remember back in my early days, I would, because I didn't have an idea of my emotions,
Yeah.
that I would hold in my emotions. Like, I mean, anything in general, if I would have, an argument with a mate, or, something's not going right at home, I would hold in my emotions because I would think that by imploding and sharing them, it would make the situation worse than what it may be.
Yeah. Oh, it does.
And I feel like that is a man thing, in that we know for a fact that we should be opening up. However, we do feel like we're making it worse.
Yeah.
If we're sharing it, and it makes us look weak. It makes us look like we can't look after our loved ones.
Yeah.
Very
much so.
I mean, even if the situation is bad, you just tell them that it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And then maybe by yourself, you might have a bit of a cry, or you might talk about it like to yourself, and then you leave it.
Yeah.
But I feel like it is slowly changing.
I think so, mate. I think, I was actually talking to some people at work about it only today, and I feel that it's also one of those things that you've got to really want to do, because it's not easy, and it takes a bitter pill to swallow, and I think that you've got to really want to make a positive change, because sometimes, and this is what happened with me, I felt like I'd lived kind of that way in my mind for quite some time.
Yeah.
And this sounds crazy, but I was almost comfortable.
Yeah, it's
living like that.
Funny you say that, because I was only speaking to, I won't mention his name, but another mate of mine, about this particular topic of becoming comfortable with your negative thoughts and depression and whatever it may be. And I feel like it's a strange thing to step out of that comfort zone, in that you might have a really good morning, and then all of a sudden a switch flicks in your head, and someone's telling you in the back of your mind, let's go back to how we're feeling, for so long.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's like as if maybe you're competing against yourself. See how long we can last. See how long this depression can last.
Yep.
And then as soon as you lose, you just start again.
It's true. And it's almost like what you know best.
Yep.
And my reaction was, and I can speak, from the heart, that sometimes it almost suited me to be that way. I could withdraw. It's what I knew. It's how I felt. I was most comfortable. I didn't know much. I knew other ways, but it was what I'd revert to.
Yeah.
And that was to my detriment. So I found that even though it was an unpleasant way to be, it was what I knew. So I stuck with it. And it took some time for me to, after I got help, I started to get help, that I actually came to that realization that the only person, I can only fix this if I really want to fix it.
Yes.
Oh, not fix it, but get to a point where I'm happier in myself and all that. I can only do that if I really want it. You can go and see all the doctors in the world. This is just my theory anyway. I guess you can go and see all the doctors in the world, all the psychs in the world. It's not going to make a bloody scrap of difference unless you really want it.
Yeah.
And I found that I went down the track of the treatment, and I'm
what sort of treatment? Because you briefly mentioned it to myself, but to people listening in, what do you mean by treatment? Because it could be anything.
I kind of had the whole range from.
Let's go. Worst case scenario.
Yeah. I'm happy to talk about it. I mean, I went and saw psychs. Spent a lot of time and money talking to them. Using, I guess, I probably used 5 or 6 different types of antidepressants. Now, this was some years ago, and they were probably a bit different back then. I personally found I was actually worse on some of them, and I actually felt spaced out. I felt like a zombie. It would actually. I was sleeping less. Less energy.
I think by reducing some of the thoughts in your brain when you're on antidepressants, this is only what I've heard.
Yeah.
It just turns you into a space cadet, because your thought process is just so minimal. You don't even. It's not even on the top of your agenda.
No, you're right.
You're just
And I
going.
found,
You're kind of just going with the flow.
yeah, you are. It's almost like it for me. I almost felt the world was happening around me, and I was just sitting there watching it. I was kind of in my own world, and it affected everything. You know, your relationships, your marriage, your relationships with other people, with you guys, and you feel. And I actually felt like on that medication, I was withdrawing even more.
Yeah.
And then I would try a different one, and then they'd get put on a different one, and then another one. And some, don't get me wrong, some were better than others, but I guess for me personally, I didn't really benefit out of them. In fact, I found in some ways they were worse for me. And the other thing too, which happened to me with a certain medication, I put on a lot of weight, and for that, and then all of a sudden I was carrying this weight. I was feeling unwell. I wasn't looking too great, and you know what? That made me feel worse. All of a sudden, I'm this big guy, and I'm only a little guy. Yeah, it's a big unit, and it makes you blow up. Like you literally, my face was all really swollen. Look at photos of me, and I don't even recognise myself.
Gus's glute from
I
Charlie.
look like a Michelin man.
Hey, Gus.
I did.
You look like Gus's glute from the
I did. That's exactly
Charlie and
what
Chocolate
I
Factory.
So, all of a sudden, these tablets that are supposed to make me feel better. I look like a Michelin man. I'm looking in the mirror and I'm thinking, who the bloody hell is this guy in the mirror? I don't even know him. And I wasn't feeling too good. So, please don't let me talk anybody out of medication, because I'm sure it works for somebody. It certainly didn't help me. So, I guess after that,
I guess it's all up for interpretation.
Oh, absolutely.
It's whether it works for you, or whether maybe you might be of that body type or that temperament to be able to take some of this medication.
And look, I'm sure it works for a lot of people. I'm not against it.
It just didn't work for you.
No, exactly. And
back,
after that...
Back on the lines of the, you were saying treatment?
Yep, other treatment. So I'd spent, after that, I guess those rounds of medication, and how I was feeling and looking, I actually ended up being hospitalised.
Why?
Because of the mental illness and because of my current state.
So, but when you say mental illness, because I think it's such a broad topic, what part of mental illness had affected you to the point that you actually had to be hospitalised?
The depression got to that point. It got to that point where, put it this way, I wasn't getting any better, and I was certainly starting to feel worse.
Did you feel suicidal a little? Or was it just a lack of worth and lack of sense of purpose?
I think it was more that, Jayden. It was more the sense of purpose and the fact, and I felt I was getting frustrated that I wasn't getting better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I guess that's where I was, and then it came to that point that I was starting to feel fairly desperate about it, and then one thing led to another, and then eventually ended up in hospital for a short period. And once again, I just felt like I was...
Space cadet.
Once again, I wanted to feel good. But I was just... The period I was there for, I think about 10 days off memory. And for that whole period, it was just medication after medication after medication, 24/7. So you'd get it in the morning, you get it in mid-morning, you get it at, and all I was doing, and I remember one thing...
Doing 24/7.
24/7. Yeah. But they did have a great cafeteria. So, this is what happened.
Double shot cappuccino.
Mate, and literally all I was doing was taking drugs or medication, legal stuff, and eating. And I wasn't feeling any better at all. I'd have a few site visits.
Yeah, it's funny because you think that being hospitalised and being faced with the worst case scenario of having to go into a hospital, that things would start to become at ease.
Yeah.
But I feel because you're so heavily focused and prioritise yourself on your mental health state over everything else, whether you might be interested in sport or a 21st is coming up or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But because you yourself you were trapped in this environment where you were saying 24/7, you know, every hour of the day, or your mind was so focused on getting better and taking the medication that I feel even for like a split second when your mind doesn't necessarily focus on it heavily, you still can't drop it.
No.
You're always thinking about it, and
I agree.
no, I don't think
Agree.
I don't think that's the best way of the healthiest way of overcoming such an illness.
I think it goes back to what we talked about, mate, a little bit, that it became your comfort zone almost.
Yep.
And what you knew.
Yep.
So yes, I did. There is no question about that, and I was very guilty of that. That one day, you know, I might feel a bit better. I'm not too bad today. Oh no, I can't feel better. I've got to go back to where I was.
Yeah.
And I felt I was on that cycle for a while, and to the point where after that first period of being in hospital, and keep in mind, and I just want to be honest, this is quite a number of years ago now. I actually had the electric shock treatment.
Yep.
At one stage, which was the second time I was in hospital, which was a shorter period, but I had several treatments of that. And for those of people who don't know, they basically put you under an anaesthetic, and they run an electric current through your brain.
Yep.
And the whole idea is to stimulate your brain, to release endorphins, to make the chemical balance in your brain fix up, or whatever the case may be. And in some places in the world, it's actually banned. I don't know whether it's still legal in Australia. I don't know.
I've never heard of it.
ECT or no, electric shock treatment or something. Words of that nature. And what the whole idea is that you come out of that and you get out of the anaesthetic, and the chemical imbalance is supposed to be better in your brain, and you feel on a bit of a high, and you do. When I remember that treatment, and after it, I came out and I thought, holy hell, it's like a release of endorphins. And you don't feel high, you feel good. And it was an amazing feeling. And I must admit, it was like a natural high almost. But it soon peters off. But the whole idea is that it lifts up your natural balance and you slowly get better. I had that a few times, and the more times you have it, the high seems to drop off quicker and quicker.
Yeah.
It was an unusual experience. I remember they put the mouth guard in, because when they put the shock treatment or the current through you, you can bite down and bite your tongue. So it's a pretty grotesque.
Did you, I know you were under anaesthetic, but did you feel anything at all? Or?
No, I didn't, but...
They completely knock you out?
They do. But I remember you have to wear a strange apparatus up here and held your head back.
Is it so that your muscles don't contract and move?
I think so, and then you don't bite your tongue or hurt yourself.
Yeah.
And then they put this contraption on your head, literally, and run a current through, and it's supposed to rectify things.
Yeah.
And afterwards, as I say, for a short term, you do feel really good. And I believe, once again, for some people it works, and it can help you long term.
Yeah.
But I guess I was at that stage and talking about it with the family and everything else, that it was decided that we'll give it a go, and I was happy to. But I guess it's one of those things on the journey, you know. And then after that, you know, that was over, and I still continue to see psychologists and things like that. I even had acupuncture.
Let me just rewind a little bit.
Yeah.
Along the lines of just facing the truth.
Yep.
I know you got to that stage of having to have shock treatment, and then it only helped you temporarily. And now you're back onto seeing a psychologist.
Yep.
Post shock. Why didn't you get to a point where you just went, you know what, stuff it, I'm just going to share my feelings with people, and I don't care how they react? Why couldn't you do that?
That's probably a really good question, mate. I mean,
like after, because I feel I've never heard of shock treatment, and to me personally, and probably to a lot of people listening in, it's probably one of the most worst case scenarios to have to go through, and to try and change your negative state of mind. How come you couldn't change your negative state of mind after that and go, stuff it, you know what, I've been through shock treatment, I've seen psychologists, counsellors, you know what, Like, I'm done with it. I'm just going to share my feelings. Why couldn't you do that?
I think because there was still that stigma and still that
Yep.
misunderstanding about it. Plus, going back to what we talked about, I still felt, I don't know if I'm ready to be better. I know that sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
I
That
know
zone,
that
zone. It's really hard. It's hard to get out of it.
it is, Jayden, and it was all I knew for so long. And I'm not. This is no one else's fault. I'm not blaming anything or anyone. It was me. I just felt like that was what I knew.
Yeah.
And to change, even though I desperately wanted to change, I don't think I knew how to, or I wanted it even enough. I don't know.
Okay. Can I ask now?
Sure.
Do you reckon you can? Do you reckon? I know you've agreed, thankfully, to do this with me because obviously both you and I, we want to make a difference, and we want people to feel comfortable, opening up to their family members or whatever it may be. But do you feel like at this day and age, right now, you could speak to your mother and actually open up and tell her how you're feeling?
Yeah.
Even knowing that she'll be listening to this video right now.
Yeah, and you know what? And the great thing, as time's gone on, we've had some great conversation about all of this stuff. And I've actually been very truthful with my family, my mum, my dad when he was alive, my sister and Chris and you guys. And I think that I'm with this sort of stuff now. I am very open about it. I'm not ashamed. I'm still ashamed of some of the things that I may have done.
Yep.
And some of the ways that I may have been.
No.
But I'm not ashamed to talk about it.
No, and I think it's the only way to you can hold them to certain ways that you were fixated on of doing, i.e. maybe for me, I knew I was quite controlling the past with my ex, and I could be quite passive and hit the wall when things weren't going my way, and stress loads were at a high where I couldn't control it. Yeah. I'm ashamed of that, but on the same lines as you, I'm not ashamed to talk about it because I know there's actually a lot of guys going through it, and this leads me onto the men's talking group that I spoke about last week. Do you want to maybe briefly touch on how you came about the men's talking group and how I eventually did it myself and I got positive out of it?
Yeah, look, I can't recommend it enough. It's a bit of a confronting situation when you first go to those sorts of things, and you're basically in a room with 15 guys, all different ages, backgrounds, ethnicity, and all the rest of it, and you hear some of the things that these guys have done, and it is actually really confronting, as you know, and you and I have spoken about.
Yep.
And you go, holy hell, this sort of stuff goes on. But I think
you also feel like, and it sounds terrible for me saying this, but I think for anyone going in there, even if they know that what they've done is very terrible or horrendous, i.e. they might have just come out of prison and they've been ordered by the court by their wife to be where they are right now.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, I think everyone feels uncomfortable going in there, and they actually go and listen to other people speak their own story and go, why am I here? Because old mate to the left of me is 10 times as worse than what I think I've done, and I think everyone feels the same way.
Yeah, you do. And then I think you realise too that it's not, the whole idea, I guess one of the big things is not to judge.
Yep.
Even though it's confronting and you do compare, and there's no question, everybody does that. And that took me a while to get used to that. But you know what? I think now that hearing those things and being exposed to that stuff was actually a benefit, because it gives you an idea of how, I guess, in an extreme, how you can behave and how you don't want to go down that track, and how you go, hang on a minute, I don't want to end up like this.
Actually, it actually is quite beneficial in that regard too, because you do hear the worst case scenario of certain situations that could come about for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you like for me, I was quite passive, like I just said, and who knows, 10, 15 years down the track, I might accidentally hit someone,
Yep.
unintentionally, and you don't know where that leads. So
There you go.
hearing this is extremely therapeutic, and it actually is a bit of a eye opener, and it's a bit of a kick up the arse to
Yeah, it is.
to make a change and a difference within your life.
I agree 100%. And being exposed to that and listen to what some people go through, and it is a bit of it is a major correction, and it does take a few sessions to, I guess, get your head around how it works. And then once you do, and the penny drops.
Yep.
I found that every time I was going there for that period, there was X amount of weeks. It was 14 weeks, I think it was, every Tuesday night or something. I found that it just got better and better, and I got an enormous amount out of it. From a mental health perspective, communication, family, relationships, everything. And it made a significant difference. And the biggest realisation for me, and we've had this discussion, Jayden, is that I guess for the first time realised that how I was behaving affected people around me.
Yeah,
Your nearest and dearest.
It's funny you say that,
Yeah.
because sometimes a loved one or a mate might react badly to how you have been reacting for so long to them.
Yeah.
And because of that reaction, you feel like as if they've done the wrong. Whatever they've done is completely terrible.
Yeah.
You'll never forgive them, blah, blah, blah. Whereas when you take a step back and you allow professionals in a men's or a woman's talking group speak up, and you hear stories from other people, after 2-3 weeks, your mindset changes and you actually realise, oh shit, like maybe I'm in the wrong. Maybe maybe I understand why that particular person acted in that specific way. And it's like I was saying to Chris Cycle when I was interviewing him in episode 2. It's probably one of the only things that I personally have got a lot out of, and to this day I can't speak more highly of it. And I think anyone who tries it, even if they're in the worst state, and I don't think they'll ever get better. And I'm not saying you'll be 100%, because you always have battles within your life. But I feel like you'll probably get to 90 to 95%, where most of the smoke will abruptly disappear, and within the horizon of that 5% of negativity is just your life problems that you'll be able to look after a lot better than what you had done prior to the talking group.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it's a light bulb moment, as I say, for me, in a lot of ways, of what you were doing, how you were hurting people around you that you love, and what impact you were having on them. And I found that it was just a very therapeutic process. I mean, I guess I've changed a lot of things that I do.
Maybe you want to briefly mention what you've given up, and maybe how difficult it was to give up certain things you've done.
Yeah. I mean, well, I gave up smoking a few years ago. I don't drink anymore, and I have not been on any sort of antidepressants or anything like that. But I've also, I try to maintain, one of the biggest things for me, and people probably know me, I do a lot of kayaking, and that's my release, and I look forward to it. I love it. I take photographs, I try and share it. I find it gives me something to look forward to every week. I'm planning the next trip. It brings a smile to my face. Like I love to get out there, and it's awesome fun.
It's funny because for me, my exertion of my negative energy, or just to be able to focus on something else, is probably going to the gym, and much like kayaking, I feel like consistency is key, in that if you miss out a week, it can have quite a bad impact. I find it very difficult to not be able to do a certain activity that you actually get so much out of, and then you miss out of it. It's hard. So I think consistency is key with anything you feel like you can
I agree.
make a change within yourself
Yeah.
in regards to your mental state.
Yeah, and you've
And you've
nothing.
got to,
Everything you've got to work at
you've
it.
got to work at it, and you've got to want. You've got to want to do it and be
You got to want
consistent.
it.
Yeah.
You got to want it. Yeah, 100%. I go kayaking every week without doubt, without a shadow of a doubt. And
Yeah.
I may, even though some days it might be bloody raining or whatever, I'll still go because you know what? I know when I come back I feel 100%. Not that I feel bad before I go, but it just gives you that natural high.
Yep.
It's something that I look forward to. It's my release, and you know what? It's something that keeps me well mentally, physically,
Yep.
and it's bloody great fun. But you're right, being consistent is huge.
This is because the reason why I'm going to ask about inconsistency having a bad impact on your mental state.
Yeah.
This is going to be probably a little bit of a touchy subject. But when our dog Odie died, and you were walking him every morning,
yeah,
and all of a sudden you weren't able to do that,
yeah,
how did that affect your mental state?
yeah, I struggle. You know, and for people who know me, he was a huge part of our lives, wasn't he, Jayden? We loved him dearly. We always will. He wasn't a dog to us. He was a family member.
Yeah, human,
you know,
yeah.
And he was a great little guy. And he was, you know, you hear them stories about, you know, people always having that loyal dog, and he was my little mate.
Yeah.
And he, you know, he was very close with me. But I guess I try to look at it this way, and I try to reason this in my mind this way, that he was 13, we had 13 fantastic years with him.
Yep.
I believe we were all blessed to have him in our lives.
Yep.
And I know people say he's just a dog, and he wasn't that to us. And
I think it's different for those who don't have a dog or a pet, or maybe are just new to, maybe you've only had a pet for 6 to 12 months.
Yeah.
When you've got a long-term pet, and they actually kind of mirror image your personality.
Yeah, he did.
No, they do. They do.
He did.
No, they do. They do.
No, he did.
And
he was very much
no, I recall like him, like, you know, at night, he'd open.
Yeah, it was. It's not nice, Joe. And I miss him desperately. And
He'd open my door in my room with his nose, and that's how I knew he was ready to go to bed, because on my door there was a little mark of his little nose, his olive nose, and that's where I knew he'd be hitting it. And as soon as I heard my door creak, that's
Yep.
yeah, it's bedtime.
Yeah, and he'd come in and he'd sit on your rug, and I agree with you 100%. And you know, the thing is that we have some fantastic memories. We have thousands of photographs, and I try and keep that as a positive too. You know, and I do. I'm like you. I miss him desperately, and I think I always will. And there's not a day that goes by that we don't think of him.
I think it's I think when you lose someone close to you, and like, you know, some people might think a dog isn't that much of a big deal, but when you lose someone you're used to seeing for so long and so often, I think it's a bit of a wake-up call that you make the most of every opportunity.
Yeah, you do.
Especially with your family members that are getting on in age.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just like even listening in, if you've got a grandmother or grandfather who's probably not in a good way, or they're on their last legs, and I don't mean that any negative way possible, but maybe this is a bit of an eye opener, just to reach out, just to ring them and just tell them you love them and that you're here for them. You know, just a bit of a eye opener, and again I restate that things in our life we don't have control over. You know, there might be a 30-year-old cousin who has a car accident the next day, and you never expected that to happen. And what I'm trying to say is just make the most of every day and every opportunity of being able to talk to them and tell them you love them, and enjoy every moment you have with them. And also forgiveness is key, because I know that families bicker over the smallest things. It might be who's cooking tonight, who's, you know, oh, you didn't pay enough for rent this week, blah blah blah. sometimes you got to put those things aside and just think at the bigger picture. If this goes on for 2-3 extra months, you know, that's 2-3 months you lose of really good communication between someone. So maybe just think about that. I can't tell you how to do things. I'm just advising and give you my perspective, but maybe just listen in and have a think about it.
But I guess I'd just like to finish off by saying, like, you know, I've had terrific support from you guys and
Yep.
family and my immediate family and wife and my mum and sister and you guys and everybody. I've had amazing support.
Yep.
And I still feel supported today. So I also think too that yes, I've had that black period,
Yep.
but you know, I'm also very lucky. And I've also got a lot to be thankful for. And
Yeah.
I do try and keep that in the front of my mind. And I try to keep myself quite busy. And I have lots of different passions. And I find that makes a world of difference to me. And everybody's different. And I think you can attack this subject many, many different ways. But I guess that's what works for me. And whatever works for you, all power to you.
Exactly. Each of their own. It's trying to find your niche and just being open and not feeling embarrassed for just giving it a go.
Exactly.
But thanks Dad for being here.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
No, proud of you for opening up. It's not easy, but I feel it's been quite a therapeutic experience talking about this sort of stuff, because it's not a day-to-day thing where you open up and share these sort of thoughts. So again, from every video that I create, Michael creates, put together, if we can help one person change their negative mindset and put them back on that road to recovery, then that's all we can ask for. But again, this has been episode 4 of Couching the Mind, clearing the mind, one couch talk at a time. And today's episode, we focus on facing the truth, and I think both myself and Dad have done a fantastic job today. So thanks for watching, guys. And as always, if you want to message me or call me for anything you may be wanting to ask, or you're feeling you're in a bad headspace, just chuck us a message on Couch in the Mind. And if you want to reach out to our social medias, we've got Snapchat, Instagram. We also have a Gmail account, YouTube, and SoundCloud. So thanks, guys, and hope you have a fantastic rest of the weekend.
Thank you.